All right, deep diver, you ready to dive deep? Today we're tackling Gary Zukov's The Seat of the Soul.
All classic.
It's one of those books that really makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself, about why we're here, what it all means.
It's definitely not your typical self-help book.
No, not at all. He dives headfirst into some pretty heavy concepts, like reincarnation and karma, and he challenges us to reconsider what we think we know about evolution.
Yeah, he really pushes the boundaries of traditional evolutionary theory.
So let's start there. With evolution, Zukov says we're evolving, but not just physically.
Right.
Right. He argues that true evolution happens at the level of consciousness.
Okay, so it's like our consciousness itself is evolving. What does that even mean?
Well, Zukov believes that our souls are on a journey of growth, and that this journey continues over multiple lifetimes through reincarnation.
Whoa, hold on. So we've lived before. Multiple times.
That's what he suggests. And each lifetime is like a school for the soul. We learn and grow from our experiences. Okay, so if we're evolving consciously, does that mean we're not just starting from scratch in each life?
Exactly. We carry the wisdom and, yes, maybe even some baggage from our past experiences. That's where karma comes in.
Karma. Okay, now you're really taking me back to my college dorm room. But seriously, what is karma? Is it like some kind of cosmic punishment system?
Not quite. Zukov describes karma as more of a balancing act of energy.
Energy. Okay, I'm intrigued, but I need a little more explanation here. How does this energy thing work?
Well, every choice we make, every action we take creates a certain energy.
So it's like our intentions and actions have a ripple effect.
Exactly. And that energy, whether positive or negative, influences our future experiences both in this life and potentially in future lifetimes.
Wow, so we're basically creating our own destiny with every thought and action. That's a pretty powerful concept to wrap your head around.
It is, and it really highlights the importance of becoming conscious creators of our reality.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we become more conscious?
Well, one of the first steps is recognizing that we're more than just five sensory beings.
Wait, what? There's more to us than what we can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell.
Absolutely. Zukav believes we have what he calls a multisensory nature, meaning we can perceive and interact with a much broader spectrum of energy and information than we realize.
So it's like we have all these hidden senses that we're not even aware of. How do we tap into them?
Zukav says one of the most powerful ways is through our intuition, those gut feelings, those inner knowings.
Intuition. You mean that little voice inside that tells me not to eat the last slice of pizza, even though I really want to?
Well, it can be as simple as that. But on a deeper level, intuition is often our soul's way of communicating with us, guiding us towards our highest good.
Okay, so if we're not just physical beings and we have this ability to tap into a higher level of consciousness, then what makes someone like, say, Einstein so different from the rest of us? Zukov calls these kinds of people mystics, right?
He does. And it's not that they're necessarily from another planet or anything. It's more that they seem to have a greater ability to access and utilize their multisensory nature.
So they're like intuitive athletes. They've trained their minds to perceive and understand the world in a deeper way.
Exactly. And this allows them to make groundbreaking discoveries and contributions to their fields, whether it's science, art, or any other area of human endeavor.
So what did these mystics discover when they went beyond the veil, so to speak? Did they find evidence to support these ideas of consciousness and evolution?
While their work often originated from within their respective fields, their insights consistently hinted at a deeper understanding of consciousness and our place in the universe.
So it's like they caught a glimpse of the source code of reality. That's incredible. But how do we even begin to access that kind of wisdom? It sounds like we need to unlock this authentic power that Zukov talks about.
You got it. And that's where things start to get really interesting.
Authentic power.
Okay.
So how do we tap into that? Is it something we're born with? Or is it something we can cultivate?
Zukav believes it's something we can all develop as we evolve consciously. It's about shifting from what he calls external power to a more internal, soul-driven power.
External power versus internal power. So what's the difference?
Well, external power is all about control dominance, trying to force the world to conform to our desires.
It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. You're just going to end up frustrated and likely break something.
Exactly. Authentic power, on the other hand, comes from aligning with our soul's purpose and allowing that to guide our actions.
So it's less about forcing and more about flowing.
That's a great way to put it. It's about trusting the natural order of things and working in harmony with it.
Okay, that makes sense. But if we're being honest, I think a lot of us get stuck in that cycle of seeking external power. Why is that?
Zukav would say it's often because we're trying to fill an internal void with something external. He calls this addiction.
Addiction. I thought we were talking about power, not substances.
Right, but Zukav sees addiction in a much broader sense. It can be an addiction to anything: possessions, relationships, achievements, even power itself.
So it's like we're looking for happiness in all the wrong places.
Exactly. We're seeking fulfillment outside of ourselves instead of looking within.
So how do we break free from that cycle of addiction to external power? Where do we even begin?
Zukov talks about the importance of confronting what he calls our emotional pain.
Emotional pain. What does he mean by that?
He's talking about those unresolved wounds, fears, insecurities, the stuff we often try to bury or numb out with our addictions.
So it's like those emotional wounds are driving our addictive behaviors.
In many cases, yes. And until we address those underlying wounds, we'll keep repeating the same patterns over and over again.
Okay, so we need to face our demons head on. But that's easier said than done, right? How do we actually do that?
It takes courage and compassion. But it starts with simply acknowledging those painful emotions, allowing ourselves to feel them without judgment.
So it's about accepting those parts of ourselves that we'd rather keep hidden.
Exactly. And once we can accept those shadow parts of ourselves, we can start to heal them.
Okay, so we're feeling our feelings. We're accepting our shadows. What's next?
Zukov believes that forgiveness is crucial.
Forgiveness, you mean forgiving the people who've hurt us?
That's part of it. But it's also about forgiving ourselves for the mistakes we've made, the ways we've hurt others or ourselves.
That's tough. Forgiving ourselves can be so much harder than forgiving other people.
It can be. But holding on to guilt and shame is like carrying around a heavy weight. It prevents us from moving forward.
It's like trying to run a marathon with a backpack full of rocks. You might eventually reach the finish line, but it's going to be a lot harder and more painful than it needs to be.
Exactly. Forgiveness is about releasing that burden, so we can move forward with more lightness and ease.
Okay, so forgiveness is key. But how do we cultivate that sense of forgiveness, especially when it feels really hard?
Zukov suggests that humility is essential.
Humility. What does that have to do with forgiveness?
Humility is about recognizing that we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
We all have flaws. None of us are perfect.
It's about acknowledging that we don't have all the answers.
Exactly. And when we can accept our own imperfections, it becomes easier to extend that same grace to others.
That makes sense. So humility helps us forgive what else?
Trust.
Trust, as in trusting other people.
Yes, but also trusting ourselves.
Yeah.
And trusting the process of life.
Okay, trusting ourselves, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But trusting the process, that can be a tough one, especially when life throws us curveballs.
It can be. But Zukov believes that the universe is inherently benevolent. Even when things are tough, there's a higher purpose at play.
So it's about having faith that things will work out in the end.
It's more than just blind faith. It's about trusting that we have the inner strength and wisdom to navigate whatever challenges come our way.
And that we're not alone in those challenges.
Exactly. Zukov reminds us that we have a whole team of spiritual allies rooting for us, whether we call them spirit guides, angels, or simply our higher selves.
Okay, I like the sound of that. A whole team of cosmic cheerleaders. But if we have all this support, why does life still feel so hard sometimes? Why do we still struggle?
Because struggle is part of the human experience. It's how we grow and learn.
So those tough times, they're not there to punish us.
No, they're there to challenge us, to help us evolve.
It's like those weightlifting sessions at the gym. They're tough in the moment, but they ultimately make us stronger.
Precisely. And just like with physical exercise, we need to challenge ourselves spiritually and emotionally in order to grow.
So how do we approach those challenging times with more grace and resilience?
Zukov suggests that we cultivate compassion, both for ourselves and for others.
Compassion. That makes sense. It's easy to get caught up in our own suffering. But when we remember that everyone is fighting their own battles, it helps us to be more understanding and forgiving.
Exactly. Compassion is a powerful antidote to suffering, both our own and that of others.
Okay, so we've got forgiveness, humility, trust, compassion. These are all essential qualities for authentic power. But how do we apply these qualities to our relationships? After all, aren't relationships supposed to be the ultimate training ground for the soul?
Absolutely. Zukov believes that our relationships offer some of the most profound opportunities for growth and evolution.
Because they act as mirrors, reflecting back to us our own patterns and beliefs.
Precisely. And as we evolve consciously, We're being called to create relationships that are based on something deeper than just physical attraction or social convenience.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about these deeper relationships.
Zukov calls them spiritual partnerships.
Spiritual partnerships, that sounds intense. What does that even mean? Spiritual partnerships. So we're not just talking about romantic relationships here.
No, not necessarily. A spiritual partnership can exist between any two people who are committed to supporting each other's growth and evolution.
So it's about a shared journey of conscious evolution. But how do we know if we're in a spiritual partnership? What does that even look like?
Well, Zukov highlights a few key elements. One is authenticity. Spiritual partners feel safe to be their true selves with each other. There's no need to pretend or put on a facade.
So you can totally let your freak flag fly.
Exactly. You can be vulnerable.
Yeah.
You can share your fears and dreams without judgment.
That takes a lot of trust.
It does. Trust is another essential element of a spiritual partnership. You trust each other to hold space for your growth, even when it gets messy.
Because let's face it, growth can be messy. Sometimes it feels like you're taking 2 steps back for every 1 step forward.
Absolutely. But in a spiritual partnership, you know that you're not alone in those struggles. You have each other's backs.
So it's like having a built-in support system for your soul's journey.
Exactly. And that kind of support can be incredibly empowering. It allows you to take risks, to step outside of your comfort zone, because you know that even if you fall, you'll be caught.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It sounds like spiritual partnerships can be incredibly transformative.
They can be. And as we embrace these principles of conscious relationships, not just in our romantic partnerships, but in all our interactions, we contribute to the evolution of consciousness on a collective level.
So it's like we're all connected. And the more love and compassion we cultivate in our individual relationships, the more we create a ripple effect that spreads outward into the world.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're all in this together, that we're all part of something much larger than ourselves.
That's a powerful message to end on. So, deep diver, if you're feeling called to embark on your own journey of conscious evolution, remember that you don't have to do it alone. Seek out those spiritual partnerships, those connections that nourish your soul and inspire you to become the best version of yourself. And trust that as you do, the universe will conspire to support you every step of the way. Until next time, keep diving deep.